Good day, friends. Today we will learn basics and types of rents as per IBBI syllabus. So here we will be discussing different types of rents, and then we will discuss how to calculate standard rent. Types of rents. So first type of rent is standard rent. This is the legally determined rent that a landlord or can charge a tenant, often regulated by rent control laws to prevent excessive rent increases. So basically, every state have its rent control act, and under this act, one of the either the tenant or the landlord, they can approach the court to fix the standard rent as per rent control act of that state. So that rent which is legally determined by the court, that is called standard rent. Then next is rack rent. This is the maximum rent that a property can command. This is the see here. This is the maximum rent that a property can command, reflecting its full market value. So it is max often used to describe the highest possible rent. Basically, it is highest possible rent that a landlord can charge under current market conditions. So it is determined by prevailing market conditions, including demand and supply, location, property conditions, without any discounts and concessions. See here, it is rent without any discounts or concessions. This is what a property can fetch in the market. Ground rent. What is ground rent? The rent paid in the building leases for the bare site alone. So here it is bare site on or, or only for open plot. It excludes payment for improvements on the site. Head rent. This is a rent paid by the lessee to the lessor. The rent paid by the lessee to the lessor is called head rent. And then improved rent, the rent in the second lease document, means between lease and sublessee. So the rent which is paid by the sublessee to the lessee is called improved rent, and it is generally higher than the head rent or rate fixed under the terms of first lease. So it is called improved rent. Profit rent, this is the difference between rent received or potentially receivable by a lessee and the lessor. So basically it is the difference of improved rent and head rent, that is called profit rent. Premium. So this is the lump sum amount paid to a lessor for granting a lease in consideration for reduction in the rent payable under the lease. So let us, so what we do here, see here in this case, a certain amount is paid as premium to the lessor by the lessee. So in but what will happen if some premium is paid? The rent will be reduced. Rent will be reduced. So that how much rent will be reduced? So this premium is basically assumed to be equals to, if you know this thing, know we know capitalized value. So it is equals to net income into YP. Here this capitalized value, that will be equals to premium. So we will replace it capitalized value as premium, that will be equals to net income. We will call this term as annual equivalent, that how much rent annually will be equals to the premium paid by the tenant or lessee multiplied by YP. So if you have to find out annual equivalent, it will be equals to premium divided by YP. So how much will be the rent will reduce? That will be equals to annual equivalent. So how is this annual equivalent is calculated? So let us suppose you require a rent reduction of rupees 1000 and years purchase you know for 5 years at 10% single premium. YP is 3.7908. So for that, if you require, see this formula, capitalized value premium is equals to annual equivalent into YP. So here premium is, you have to find out premium. Annual equivalent is 1000. If you require a 1000 reduction in the rent per annum, so you have to multiply it with, so here the annual equivalent is 1000. It means for a rent reduction of 1000, you require YP is 3.7908. You require a premium of 3790.8. Similarly, for a reduction of 2000, you require this much premium to be paid. And similarly, for 3000, for 4000, for 5000, reduction in rent, how much amount you need to pay as premium, that will be equals to 3000 multiplied by this YP, which is 3.7908, 18950. This is annual equivalent, means this is premium, sorry, this is the premium which you have to pay. And annual equivalent means you require a payment of rent reduction of rupees 5000. So this explanation is simple, that for every 1000 reduction in over the 5-year terms, you require to pay market value of owner's freehold interest immediately falls by 3790.8 U. So here is what, if you take in the reverse order, let us suppose, see, if you deposit 18950 18954 for 5 years at 10% interest, so you deposit this amount. This is the first year's interest at 10%. It means your total amount will be 20849.4. If you withdraw 5000, you will be left with 1585849. In the next year, your amount in the bank will be 158549. Interest at 10% will be 1584.94. Total amount in the bank will be 17434.34. You withdraw 5000, you will be left in the bank with 1243.434. Similarly, in in the next year, this is the amount in the bank. So interest at 10% is 123.1243.434. Total amount in the bank will be 13677.77. You withdraw 5000, you will be left with 8677.774 in the bank. In the next year, on this amount, this will be the interest on the at 10% rate. So you will be having 954.45.555551 in the bank. You withdraw 5000 from the bank, you have 4545.5514 in the bank. And last year, fifth year, you have this much amount in the bank. This is the interest you earn. Total amount in the bank is 5000. You withdraw 5000, it means you have nothing in the bank. So far, it means if you get a premium of 18954 at 10%, you will get 5000 and interest every year. So it means, to if you want to a rent reduction of 5000 for 5 years at 10% interest rate, you have to pay a premium of 18954. This is what premium will do. So this is what premium is called. So it is used to calculate annual equivalent. That will be the reduction in the rent. So what premium should A charge on the grant of a 10-year lease to B at a rent of 15,000? The market rent is 25,000. Assume a freehold rate of 10%. So market rate is 25,000. Agreed rent is 15,000. It means loss of rent is 10,000. So YP single rate at 10% is 6.14 46. We know premium is equals to, formula is premium is equals to annual equivalent into YP. So you have to find out premium. So this is YP 6.1446, and you require 10,000 as reduction in the rent per year. So the premium you have to get is 10,000 into 6.1446. It means you require 61,446 as premium. So A should get a premium of 61,446. It means if you divide it with 6.1466, means you will get 10,000 as interest from the bank. So you require a premium of 61,446 as premium. So another example that will make the things clear. So it's same question. See here how it happens. So market value before premium, if not premium was not paid, market rent was 25,000. So YP at 10% in perpetuity. So here we will be using YP perpetual. So YP at 10% will be 10. So 100 upon 10 it means it will be equal to 10. So capitalized value will be 25,000 into 10, that is 2,50,000. So if you have 25,000 as rent, the market value at 10% is 2,50,000. Now see here, market value after premiums. Agreed rent is 15,000. So YP at 10 years at 10%, YP single rate we will be applying 6.1446. So capitalized value for this rent is 15,000 into 6.1446, 92,169. Then reversion of market rent. So YP reversion, that PV upon R, that is YP after 10 years. What will happen? The person will get 25,000 as rent. So for the first 10 year he is getting 15,000 at rent. After 10 years rent will be equals to 25,000. So we will be applying after 10 years. What will happen? Rent will be equals to 25,000. So YP reversion, you can calculate the formula. You know this is the YP reversion formula, or PV upon R. It is 3.8554. So 25,000 into 3.8554, 96,385. So see here, this is capitalized value for first 10 year. This is the capitalized value after 10 year, and this is a premium paid. So total, if you add all the threes, 69 A plus B plus C, if you get A plus B plus C, that is also equals to 2,50,000. So this is how this premium works. Calculate the premium to be paid when a shop property 5% annual return yield is to be let out at 50,000 on a 5-year normal lease terms, when the market rent for similar properties is 75,000. So you know market rent is 75, agreed rent is 50,000. So loss of rent is 25,000. So what you have to do? You have to know the formula premium. Premium is equals to annual equivalent into YP. So annual equivalent is 25,000. YP you can calculate for a single date 5 at 5% for 5 year, it is 14.47. You multiply 25,000 into 14.47, it means you need a premium of 3,61,750. So next is virtual or sitting rent. This is the actual rent paid plus the annual equivalent of the premium or capital expenditure incurred by the tenant in addition to the alterations to the premises. Next is economic rent. Economic rent refers to the payment made for the use of land alone. See here, economic rent is the payment made for use of land alone. Gross rent is the rent which is paid for the services of land and the capital invested on it. See here, it is the rent which is paid for the services of land and the capital invested on it. So gross rent, it consists of, it means gross rent consists of, first thing is economic rent, means it refers to the payment for the use of land. Net Next, interest on capital invested for improvement of land. And third thing which is to be added is reward for risk taken by the landlord in investing his capital. So gross rent is the total rent of a property would produce if 100% occupied at market rent. Net rent, the net rent from a property represents the amount left at the end of the year after deducting all the outgoings from the gross rent. So net rent is equals to gross rent minus outgoings. Market rent. Next is market rent. The amount of rental income that could be expected from a property if available for rent on the open market. That is called market rent. As indicated by, this is a prevailing rental rates for comparable properties. How it is calculated? We calculate it on the basis of comparable properties, prevailing rental rates for comparable properties, and with similar conditions and terms and conditions. May not be same as the contract rent. So contract rent, it is a basically actual amount of rent the property is earning as specified in a lease or rent agreement. It means it is a rent agreed between the tenant and the landlord or lessee and the lessor. So market rent may be higher than the contract rent, may be lower than the market rent. Scarcity rent. It refers to the price paid for the use of homogeneous land, which is when its supply is limited in relation to demand. If all the land is homogeneous but demand for land exceeds its supply, the entire land will earn economic rent by virtue of scarcity. So in this way, rent will arise when supply of land is inelastic. Statutory rent. So this is rent un- under law, like annual assessment of lands by authorities is called statutory rent. This may be different at different places. The statutory rents are collected by the government. For agricultural land, some share of profits of agricultural products is to be given to the government in the form of statutory rent. Next is nominal rent. Sometimes due to relationship or some sort of attachment between the landlord and the tenant, a rent much less than the actual rent is charged to the tenant, which is called nominal rent. So basically, when there is some relation between landlord and the landlord may get much less than the actual rent, and this is called nominal rent and is charged to keep a relationship of landlord and tenant. Next is acknowledgement rent. A token rent much below the nominal rent. See here, it is a token rent much below the nominal rent. It is known as acknowledgement rent to keep alive the interest of the party entitled. Next is intangible rent. The business premises fetch a rent which is more than the total cost of return on the investment and normal profit. Why? Due to performance of business activity known as goodwill of business. So the rent because of goodwill of business, it is called intangible rent. So when the total income received by an entrepreneur is far excess than the total returns of investment of land and building and normal profit of construction, the balance represents intangible rent, which is due to entrepreneurship, ability, organizational skill, labor and intelligence. This is sometimes also called entrepreneur's profit. Then secured ground rent. What is secured ground rent? A vacant ground given under lease and the lessee develop the land and make improvement and lease out the building he has constructed. So let us suppose a open land is given by the lessor to the lessee. Lessee constructed a building over it, and lessor is getting head rent. But because a building has been constructed, so type of rent, this type of condition is called that this is a secure where landlord will get secured rent. He has more security, so he maintains the building and pays statutory taxes. So this type of condition, when lessee constructed a building over the open land which he has get from the lessor, the rent given to the head lessee is called secured ground rent. Unsecured ground rent, so a vacant ground given under lease and the lessee leases the vacant land for vehicle parking or material storing without any construction. See here, without any construction and without making any improvement. In such case, the rent which the head lessee will get or a lessor will get, that is called unsecured ground rent. Now we will discuss what are the different types of outgoings which are to be considered for calculating net rent from the gross rent. First thing is repair. So it includes various types of repairs such as annual repairs, special repairs, immediate repairs, etc., which are to be done by the landlord or by the lessor. It is generally taken as 10 to 15% of the gross income. Then taxes are to be paid by the lessor or the landlord. These includes municipal taxes, wealth tax, income tax, property tax, etc. It may be taken as after deducting the annual repairs, then we apply annual repairs at, or after deducting annual repairs 15 to 20%, we apply the taxes. They are calculated on annual rental value of the property, which is equals to gross income minus annual repairs, which are we already discussed are 10 to 15% of the gross income. Then management and collection charges, we 5 to 10% of gross income may be taken for this purpose. For small buildings, it may not be necessary to consider it. Then loss of rent, as it is possible, may not be possible to keep the whole premises fully let at all times. In such cases, suitable amount should be deducted from the gross rent as loss of rent. Then house insurance. The premium paid by the owner for fire insurance of the property is to be considered as one of the items of outgoings. Then sinking fund. So sinking fund, we know at the end of our expiry of utility period or the term of lease, in case of leasehold properties, a property is either to be replaced or reconstructed or rebuilt. So if it is so desired to continue the income from the same, the fund set aside for this purpose is known as sinking fund. So if this precaution is not taken by the owner, he will lose both structure as well as income at the end of useful life of the building. So then how the market rent is calculated or decided in India. So we will now discuss that how the market rent is to be calculated. So determining the market rent of a property in India, it is done in the following steps. First method is market comparison approach. So what we do, we find out similar properties which are given in the rent in the vicinity of the property of which we have to find out the rent. So we look at the rental rates of similar properties in your area. So we can consult real estate agents or online real estate platforms, the local newspaper, real estate agents. They can provide valuable insights. Then closed rentals. Focus on properties that have been rented out in the last 3 to 6 months. See here to get most accurate comparison. So we generally take the properties which have been rented in the last 3 to 6 months so that we get most accurate comparison. Then evaluate property features. So we have to consider size and layout. So consider the size, number of bedrooms and bathrooms, floor levels, and overall layout of the property to compare the properties of which we are considering as comparable. Then we have to compare their amenities, that whether proximity to public transportation, schools, parks, shopping centers, and other amenities, as these can significantly impact the rental value. Then, of course, the condition and maintenance of the building, how the property is maintained, what is the condition of the property. If you know, well maintained properties with modern amenities and updated fixtures tend to attract higher rents. Then if the property is provided with energy efficient equipment, so energy efficient features like energy efficient appliances can justify higher rental value. Then market trends. So you have to check population growth and employment in that area. So you have to check the analyze the trends such as population growth and employment opportunities in the area, as these can affect rental demands and prices. Then infrastructure development. So new developments like metro links, parks, commercial hubs, these can also increase the property value and hence they will increase the rental value. So rental yield, this is most important. How it is calculated? Divide the annual rental income by the property's market value or purchase price to calculate the rental yield. So this helps in to assess the return on investment from renting property. Then legal guidelines and rent control act laws. You have to check the local rent control laws and regulation that might affect the rental value. Next is determination of standard rent in India. This is most important. Many times as a valuer you may be asked by the court to determine the standard rent. So it is generally governed by rent control acts which are state specific. These acts aims to protect tenants from exorbitant rents and ensure fair rental practice. So how it is calculated? First thing is application to the rent controller. So either the landlord or the tenant can apply to the rent controller for fixation of standard rent. This application is usually made when there is a dispute regarding the rent amount. So what are the factors to be considered? First thing is market value. Market value of the property at the time of letting. Construction cost and the age of the building. You have to consider location and of the property and the amenities provided, municipal valuation of the property if available, calculation method, historical rent, the rent at which the property was let out on a specific historical date when it was let out at first instance. Then fair rent, a reasonable rent is determined by considering the factors mentioned above. Legal provisions. So each state has its own Rent Control Act, such as Delhi Control Act 1958, Maharashtra Rent Control Act 1999. So these acts provide detailed guidelines for determining the standard rent. So now we will take an example of calculating standard rent. A newly constructed house standing on a plot costing 60 lakh. The construction cost of the building is 20 lakh and the estimated life of the building is 66 years. The investor desires to have 8% return on the construction cost and 5% return on the land cost. Assuming the annual repairs to be 1% of the cost of construction and other outgoings at 30% of gross rent, calculate the annual rent that will be charged for the building. The annual installment of sinking fund for a life of 66 years of the building at 3% may be taken as half paisa per rupees. So means Sinking fund, you know, it is 1 upon S. It is for 1 rupee, it is half paisa, means 1 upon 200. So for 66 years at 3%, you need not to calculate sinking fund coefficient. It is already given, which at 3% for 66 year it is 0.0505. Whenever you have to require, you will be using this value as 0.005. Then what he has said, this is the value of the land, and on the land he require 5% return. So 5% return on a cost required on the land. 5% of 60 lakh, it means he require 3 lakh per annum. Then annual repairs. Annual repairs are 1% of the cost of building. 1% of 20 lakh means annual repairs are 20 lakh into 1%, 20,000. So how much he require from the building? He require 8% return from the building, means 8% over 20 lakh. So he require 1,60,000 per annum from the building. So he require 3 lakh per annum from the land. He require 1,60,000 from the building. So net he require is 4,60,000. We know net income is equals to gross income minus outgoings. So let us suppose gross income is X. So what are the outgoings? Outgoings are given 30% of gross income. Other outgoings are given to you as 30% of gross rent. Gross rent is X percent X. So 0.3X is the amount of other going. And sinking fund, you know, at 3%. 3% is 0.0051 upon 200 of 20 lakh, it is 10,000. So net income, you know, it is equals to net income, you know, it is equals to gross income minus outgoings. So net income, you know, it is 4,60,000. Outgoings are X is the gross income minus outgoings. One outgoing is 20,000, other is 0.3X, third one is 10,000. So X minus 0.3X is 0.7X minus 30,000. So 0.7X minus 30,000, this is equals to 4,60,000, which is net income. So X is equals to 4,90,000 divided by 0.7, it is 7 lakh. So your gross income is 7 lakh. So rent per month will be 7 lakh divided by number of months, rupees 858,333. It is the gross rent per month. So this is how the standard rent is calculated. So this is all about this topic, basics of rents and their types. So please like, share and subscribe our YouTube channel. This is our YouTube channel for more educational videos on valuation and other related videos. Of course, all these videos are free of cost. And if you have any suggestion, please comment. Your suggestions are always welcome. Thank you. Have a nice day.